Pat Forde back here on the show. How you doing, Pat?
Doing well, Rich. Ready for football.
You know you are. And yet it's interesting, just like in the NFL, we're not talking about the actual gridiron just yet. You know, the play is right around the corner. The stories off the field, the off-season, non-playing season stories that are just dominating headlines, and for good reason. I want to hit you what you know right now about what's going down at The Ohio State University. The Board of Trustees getting set to meet tomorrow, correct?
Yeah. Yep. Meeting tomorrow for a discussion of all the recommendations and findings from the committee that's been investigating how Urban Meyer handled the Zach Smith disaster, quite frankly. Then, we'll see from there what the timeline is, how long it will take the trustees and president to confer and the president to make a decision on what action to take, if any. Most people are expecting something Thursday, probably Friday at the latest, possibly even Wednesday. But we're getting close to an answer, at least. The question, I think, is, how can Ohio State actually do this and find a way for not at least some portion of people to be absolutely outraged no matter what it decides.
So what are you hearing? What the ear to the ground here so far, Pat?
I know this. The Columbus Dispatch reported that there had been, strong discussion of a suspension. No real time frame given on that. Is it the time that Urban Meyer's already missed? Is it a game? Is it 2 games? Is it a whole season? I think there's been some pushback at any sort of additional sanction from Meyer. But I also know that, there's been a lot of I think the committee did very thorough work. And I think especially when Courtney Smith came back with the latest and most lurid round of allegations against Zach Smith for some of his behaviors, that I think there was a lot of concern within the football complex there that meant that they were really kind of looking at things beyond what did Urban do with the domestic violence allegations, and how much are they concerned about just the overall embarrassment of this whole thing to the program. So I think there's still kind of a wide degree of uncertainty of exactly what they're looking at and what they want to penalize here.
Well, I guess Pat Forde here on the show. The 2 questions that I'm looking to see get answered is, one, is that if Zach Smith was pulled off the recruiting trail by Gene Smith because Urban Meyer did in fact tell him what he heard about through the text exchange between Courtney Smith and his wife, if that is the actual accurate timeline of events, then why was he allowed to stay on staff for as long as he did, and then why was he fired? That's one piece. And then 2 is I guess the similar aspect of it is that what is Gene Smith's role in all of this, and will he emerge unscathed from all of this, Pat?
No, great questions. The fact is, that nobody has disputed that those things happened. That Urban Meyer was informed, and that he took it through proper protocol, and that Zach Smith was brought in to meet with Gene Smith, and then why there was a decision made that everything's fine. I don't know. I mean, that to me, especially since if you're Urban, this was a second domestic violence allegation. There was one in 2009 in Gainesville, and he was actually arrested then, although it was not charged. That's always been the question to me, is why was there such a seemingly high tolerance level for a guy that was really a problematic employee? And that was before we even knew about some of the other stuff. And then, Gene Smith's part in this, where does the buck stop? What did he do? What was his actions, and why was there no further action taken there? I don't know. I mean, I know Urban Meyer is in charge of hiring and firing his staff, like most coaches are, but especially a coach of his level and magnitude. But he also has a boss, and a boss who would be able to, you would theoretically step in and say, we don't need this guy in our athletic department. But he did work for 3 more years, and so hopefully we get some more explanations of that here, but when all this is wrapped up.
And what do you think, Pat, are the odds that the only lesson for Urban Meyer out of this is that he needs to, when he speaks into a microphone, understand that Buckeye family is not the only group of people in the United States that deserve a proper explanation as to what's going on inside the Buckeye building and program, Pat.
Oh, that could be his takeaway from it. And that's, I do wonder, and I had an athletic director actually at another school ask me somewhat cynically, but if Urban had just not lied at media day, would this thing have gone away? I don't know. But he certainly absolutely did lie at media day. And yes, if this was the Ohio State fans sure don't care about whether he's lying to the media, but this is beyond, lying about whether or not your running back has a shoulder injury. These are fairly significant issues and significant allegations. And quite frankly, it was found out very quickly that Urban lied completely about it. And his explanation for why he did was rather unconvincing. But if there's no more real sanction, then that's probably going to be his takeaway. So, we'll see. I have to think there's going to be something more than him just missing 3 weeks of August practice. But I don't know.
We'll find out maybe this week, as you point out in short order, Pat Forde of Yahoo Sports. And then what is happening in Maryland, do you think? I mean, DJ Durkin still out on the administrative leave as well. Do you think he ever sees a Maryland sideline again, Pat?
No, I don't. I would anticipate that he's done. It's just a question of, tidying things up in a way that would make it a pretty clear-cut decision. I don't know anybody kind of on the periphery of that situation that doesn't think that's going to be the outcome. Some people took note that the president and athletic director, when they did speak about this, they threw it basically all on the training staff as opposed to the coaching staff. But when the strength coach, who is the right-hand man and basically the philosophical facilitator of what the coach wants done in a program, has been pushed out, it's hard to believe that the head coach isn't going to be pushed out as well.
Yeah, and it's interesting. I mean, Sally Jenkins of the Washington Post pointing out today that ever since Corey Stringer died of heat exhaustion in an NFL camp 17 years ago, the NFL has not had another single instance of that happening, but 27 young men in college football have passed away. Do you think the NCAA, and I know it's always difficult to just turn to them to try and legislate something, that there needs to be some form of uniform of rules on campuses across the United States to tell coaching staffs or training staffs that this is the way things are done, Pat?
In an ideal world, yes, but you're right, though. It becomes this default, like, why can't the NCAA do anything about it? Why can't the individual schools do something about it? Under what planet, is this sort of thing possibly conscionable for it to keep happening over and over again? It's astounding to me. It's happened in a number of places. I went to the University of Missouri. It happened there in 2005. They settled a wrongful death suit. And to the best of my knowledge, the head trainer from then is still the head trainer now, which is fairly amazing. George O'Leary survived a wrongful death suit at Central Florida. I don't understand really how these things haven't been taken more seriously, haven't enacted greater changes, and haven't really shaken the sport more to its core. It is, again, another example, I think, of just some of the both irresponsible nature and the soulless nature of college athletics, which we all like and enjoy and want to feel good about. But, man, there's a lot of things that make you feel bad, actually.
So let's talk about what's going on the field. Best conference in college football in 2018 will be?
I kind of think the Big Ten. I look at it, and I know they've got a bunch of teams in the top 15 in the polls, and I think that's legitimate. I think Wisconsin's going to be very good this year, and I was a bit of a basher last year, but at least they're going to have to play some teams this time around within the league. Ohio State, if Urban Meyer is back on the sideline, excellent team. Penn State's going to be good. Michigan State's going to be good. I think Michigan has a big rebound season and is much better. I think Northwestern and Purdue are sneaky. I think this is a really good year in the Big Ten.
And then your preseason quartet to be playing for it all would be?
Oh, some usual suspects, I'm afraid, really. I'd
Nice.
start with Clemson probably, and then you have to look at Alabama. And then the question is, did the SEC get two in again? And I think there will be backlash towards that. People will be predisposed not to let it happen. So if you take out Georgia, which I think really could be one of the 4 best teams, I would go Wisconsin and Washington probably for the other 2.
That's a big Washington-Auburn's a pretty big Week 1 game, isn't it?
Huge, big. That one for sure, because Auburn's a good team as well, and Washington's sticking its neck out going down to Atlanta to play them basically in Auburn's backyard.
And, Pat, how do you think the Alabama quarterback situation plays out? Because, as you know, one goes down. Nick Saban's not just going to, what do you say, defecate out another player, as he said from his podium. That's the soundbite of the year already in the clubhouse. But it sure seems like the depth chart, they just grow out there. It's unbelievable, Pat.
Yeah, just trust the poop process. Absolutely.
That's a great T-shirt.
That's the thing is I wonder if some of the slow playing of naming the quarterback might just be to keep Jalen Hurts or whoever doesn't get the job on campus, as opposed to having them transfer immediately and try to get in somewhere this semester and speed up the process of being eligible next year. But it's going to be a dicey situation. I expect Tua Tagovailoa to win the job, but how happy is the backup going to be? This is going to be one of Nick Saban's, I think, most challenging coaching jobs, just from that standpoint, and breaking in new coordinators on both sides of the ball. So that's one reason I'm not picking Alabama number 1. I just think they have a few more challenges than Clemson right now.
Always enjoy our chats and love reading your material, Pat. Hopefully we'll chat a lot during the football season.
That would be great, Rich. Thank you.
You got it. That's Pat Forde at Yahoo Forde.
The Rich Eisen Show, weekdays at noon Eastern on Audience.